Joining me, Jack Berkman, Republican strategist and host of Behind the Curtain with Jack Berkman. Catch him every Saturday night on the Radio America Network and Sunday afternoons at 2 on WMAL in Metro D.C. Also, Mark Levine, Democratic delegate-elect to the Virginia State House. Catch his nationally syndicated radio show, Inside Scoop, weekdays at 3 p.m. on marklevinetalk.com. The Republican candidates for president clashed over national security in the first GOP debate since the terror attacks in Paris and San Bernardino, California. I'd like to start with a 90-second clip of the highlights.
Trump says we ought to close that internet thing.
Donald, is great at the one-liners, but he's a chaos candidate.
And this is what it's like to be on the floor of the United States Senate. Endless debates about how many angels on the head of a pin from people who've never had to make a consequential decision.
Donald, you're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency.
It's actually merciful if you go ahead and finish the job rather than death by 1,000 pricks.
So you are okay with the deaths of thousands of innocent children and civilians? It's like,
You got it.
So when you ask yourself, whoever you are that think you're going to support Donald Trump, do you believe in the Constitution?
They can kill us, but we can't kill them. That's what you're saying.
If you want something talked about, ask a man. If you want something done, ask a woman.
Well, I think if you're in favor of World War III, you have your candidate.
Virtually the entire early portion of the debate was Trump this, Trump that, in order to get ratings,
Mr. Trump,
I guess. I've gotten to know him over the last 3 or 4 days. He has a wonderful temperament. He's just fine. Don't worry about it.
Ted, you support legalizing people who are in this country illegally.
That for Marco to suggest our record's the same, it is like suggesting the fireman and the arsonist have the same record because they're both at the scene of the fire.
are you ready to reassure Republicans tonight that you will run as a Republican and abide by the decision of the Republicans?
I really am.
There you go. Why watch the debates when you can watch the hours of the week that was? 90 seconds, you've got it all. Fiery stuff. Let's talk about what losers and winners. Jack, you first, and finally somebody gave Jeb Bush some lines he could use. Maybe too little too late, but at least Jeb had some lines.
Yeah, Jeb Bush was a winner. It's just, as you say, Morris, it's too little too late. I mean, he moved left. He hit Trump on the Muslim thing because he had all kinds of room to roam. Marco Rubio wisely did not. He avoided that. I don't know. I continue to think the big winner of the night was Donald Trump. I was a little surprised, and I don't know if the rest of the commentariat agrees with me on this, but Ted Cruz was attacking Trump. He was attacking Rubio. He was just attacking everybody in all directions. He was talking over Wolf Blitzer. I don't think he helped himself. I really think Cruz should be taking the position, I can't catch Donald Trump, but I'm betting that Trump will implode, and I'm going to hold my position as the conservative alternative. He's not doing that.
Well, I think he's thinking that, and I thought he had some good lines. Mark, who were the winners and losers in your book?
Well, I agree with Jack that Cruz is waiting for Donald Trump to implode, and then he can take over. I did think it was an interesting exchange between Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz. I think they are the leaders, and they may well be, despite the polls. And it was fascinating the way they were talking about immigration. Ted Cruz basically wants to allow the immigrants to come here and work. He just doesn't want to allow them to become citizens and vote. So that's sort of an old
One problem, Morris, one problem with this. I was a little surprised by Rubio that he wants immigration to be so salient, because that's the issue that the base holds him out as a left-winger. So the more, in my book, the more you talk about that, the worse it gets. If I were Rubio, I'd be focusing on foreign policy. He
was asked the question, Jack. I mean, he really couldn't avoid the question.
But he's continuing this week. I mean, the media is presenting it as a kind of victory. It's a victory in the debate war, but I just don't know if it helps him with the Republican base.
And there's been a great deal of focus on the immigration exchange between Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz. Cruz criticized Rubio for supporting immigration reform. Rubio hit back, saying Cruz's stance isn't any different. My question, do voters really care? A new poll by the Associated Press finds 56% of conservative Republicans would prefer a candidate who would keep Obama's immigration action in place. So, Jack, is this a winning issue or a non-issue?
Well, we'd have to see more polls. I mean, I think immigration, I don't think there's any question that immigration is really salient among the Republican base, Morris. I think, though, the big issue, and this is the number one reason why Trump is in the lead, even more so than just the anti-establishment trends, is the war on political correctness. This idea that you're not free to speak. Republicans have cared about this for years. People have been afraid to talk about it. Trump is not afraid. He's bringing everybody out of the shadows. I think that's the main dynamic in the race.
Mark, what about the issue of political correctness, immigration? Do people really care about immigration anymore?
Well, as you point out, Morris, even Republicans support President Obama's plan. It's a strong minority, but a minority of Republicans that care very strongly about immigration. It's the old nativist crowd, the people that don't want America to be a diverse society. And yes, they are push-polling for Donald Trump. But Donald Trump, he really showed, I think, his ignorance on Tuesday night. When he didn't even know what the nuclear triad was. This is a guy who has no idea what he's doing, but what he is doing about political correctness, he's changing dog whistles into open racism, and that's something that some Republicans really like.
I wouldn't go that far, Mark. I mean, remember that most of the general public doesn't either. They identify with Trump. Trump is a master marketer. He knows that the public won't crucify him for those kinds of errors.
He represents a third of the Republican Party. That's hardly the public, Jack.
Give them what they want. That's what it boils down to. Let's move on to the omnibus. A divided Congress approved a $1.1 trillion spending bill to fund the government through 2016 and extended $680 billion in tax cuts for businesses and individuals.
In divided government, you don't get everything you want. This is the result of a bipartisan, bicameral compromise. And I think everybody can point to something that gives them a reason to be in favor of both of these bills.
Paul Ryan needed a lot of Democratic support to get this done. He's taking heat from people like Rush Limbaugh and others for caving in to White House demands. Is this a win for Democrats, Mark?
I think it is. I think it's a relatively good bill, particularly as good a bill as the Democrats could have gotten out of Republican Congress. I think the Republicans are learning that when they shut down the government, they lose politically, and they're afraid of doing that, and that's a good thing. And listen, there are a lot of things in the bill that I don't like. I don't like these massive tax cuts that increase the deficit that Republicans seem to always want to do. I understand they want to give benefits to their political contributors, but still, overall, I thought it was a fair bill.
Paul Boehner. Oh, excuse me, Paul Ryan. I forget. I forget.
Same thing.
Paul Ryan. He is the same thing. Paul Ryan really should be ashamed of himself on this, agreeing to $1.6 billion for the purpose of resettling Syrian refugees in the United States. What is going on? He should have fought on Planned Parenthood. Well, he's a moderate. He's taking himself out of the presidential game. I think a lot of conservatives, Rush Limbaugh, and
Drudge Report was a giant giveaway. Do you follow that line that this is just a big giveaway? I mean, what's going on with your party?
Very much so. I think Paul Ryan just wants to wrap it up. He wants to keep his image pristine with the establishment media. They like him. He wants to keep it that way. But I think Paul Ryan should have. I think he was wise to not want to be speaker. I think he'll regret this because I think.
By the way, the only senator running for president who missed this big vote was Marco Rubio. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought that was really strange. I mean, I know he's missed a lot of votes all year round, but
this was the big one.
Single vote on the omnibus budget, the vote that puts all the packages together, everything there, he should have voted or at least declared his position on it.
Jack, that's got to be ammunition for somebody.
Sure. I mean, it's ammunition for Cruz if he can get around to it. It's ammunition for Trump should he ever need it. I don't know that Trump has any reason to go after Rubio right now. It would just cause Rubio to rise in the polls. Yeah, Rubio seems to have some intense organizational challenges. That doesn't bode well. That doesn't bode well for somebody wanting to be president.
All right, let's talk about a new controversy on the left. Presidential candidate Bernie Sanders is in hot water with the Democratic National Committee. A software error resulted in a data breach of voter files for more than 10 early voting states. Officials say Team Sanders accessed proprietary information compiled by Team Clinton. This looks bad, Mark.
It's very interesting to watch the finger pointing here. We really don't know exactly what went on. Who caused the software error? Was it the manufacturer? I have to say something. I use this myself, my own campaigns. Virtually every Democratic candidate does. It's a voter file of the people who vote for Democrats.
What's your password?
I'm not going to tell you, but
okay.
It's a very, very important database. The question is, and we really don't know, whether the Sanders staffers did as they said they're doing. They used a breach of the firewall, the software error, to show that there was a mistake in the software, or whether they actually were basically downloading stuff. I'll tell you this: the guy was fired who did it, and I think the Sanders and the DNC should work together to really quickly resolve it.
Make a prediction, make some news, Jack.
We'll make some news. The race will be on the Democratic side, not the Republican side. The Republican side is going to be wrapped up by the end of February, the beginning of March.
Really?
Trump will wrap that up quick. Wow. Bernie Sanders is going to score some early upsets against Hillary Clinton. I think right now, Her Majesty HRC is furious with the DNC.
You want to lay money on those bets, Jack?
This will help.
I think you're wrong on both counts.
This scandal will help Bernie Sanders.
You're wrong on both counts. Bernie Sanders may well win New Hampshire and a couple of other states. That will be it. But the Republican contest over by February? Are you kidding me? I'd love to put money on that one.
All right,
we'll bet dinner.
Okay.
When does my 401k go up in value? That's the other question I've got for you, Jack.
It's hurting
The 12th of never. It goes up on the 12th of never. Remember the old war song?
I do. All right. The latest poll shows Hillary Clinton cruising in Iowa, however. In her own words, what difference at this point does it make, Jack? She's not concerned about this. You seem to be thinking something else.
In her mind, she's already moving toward the general. She's already moving to the right. She's already she's already preparing for the general election. She has no opposition. I think Bernie Sanders will surprise her. One of the things I'm seeing is that while married women, women 40 and up strongly support Hillary. Under 40, they support Bernie Sanders. I think you could see some real action in these primaries. I think people have forgotten about the Democratic side, and I think a major surprise is coming.
Well, the Democrats are letting people forget by having their debates on the weekend. Mark, how do you buy into all these statistics here?
Well, I think Bernie Sanders will get about a third of the Democratic vote. He might push 40. I don't think he'll go over 40. He might win a state like New Hampshire, which after all borders Vermont, which he's represented for decades. But I don't think he's a real force, other than he is jazzing people up, getting people excited. And Hillary Clinton would do well to reach out to Bernie Sanders supporters after she wins the nomination and make sure that they give her that same excitement.
One of the things Mark is making, I think, the mistake in assuming this is no contest. He's making the mistake, the same mistake that the Clintons made in 08, the same mistake that a lot of people are making
Bernie
in the
Sanders
Democratic
is no
Party.
Barack Obama.
A lot of the power Democrats in Washington, like Mark, do not understand how far left-wing their own party has gone. They don't understand the extent of the extremism. The media loves to talk about how right-wing the Republican Party is. I can assure you, I am 100% certain, and this is not a partisan comment, the Democratic Party is a lot far to the left in its base than the Republican Party is to the right.
Has moved to the right as frankly the Republican Party has moved way off the deep end to the right, and I think Hillary Clinton well represents the middle of the country.
All right, before we go, I'd like to touch on an endorsement that could change the game for GOP presidential frontrunner Donald Trump. In his year-end news conference, Russian President Vladimir Putin called Trump an outstanding and talented personality. Now, is this a compliment for Trump or a veiled critique of President Obama, or maybe both? Jack?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe they can have drinks together. Trump probably knows Putin. Who knows? Who knows, Morris? I think it'll help him.
I think Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump have a lot in common. They both have authoritarian tendencies. They both, except Putin probably understands a little bit more about the world around him than Donald Trump. But I'll tell you something. If Putin loves Donald Trump, that's one more reason why Donald Trump will not be president.
Well, even I have some authoritarian tendencies, Mark.
All right, we'll see what
Hopefully
people have said. Even the old Reagan Democrats and Reagan Republicans have suggested that Putin missed a world leader that was on his same level that he could kind of wrestle with and cajole with and talk to. And maybe this is a veiled slap at Barack Obama at the same time.
Maybe they can ride a horse together bareback.
All right, take their shirts off. Mark Levine, Democratic lawmaker, Jack Berkman, Republican strategist, the best political panel on TV. Thanks to you both.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Marth.